Hello, ISDS2000 Business Statistics students online section. Week 7 of our semester is beginning, and if you recall that the semester is about 15 and a half weeks, we are really into the midst of it, aren't we? Now, you see I have a danger pictures on here because there's some things that we need to talk about. Now, I already talked to this online section about this in our last video, and so I was a little, concerned and thinking, how do I really make this stick? What I want you to understand is that you are currently in a place right now, you're at a crossroads where you have the choice of defining your success. You have to decide if you're going to turn to the failure route of failure or if you're going to really kick in and engage and do what's necessary to succeed. I thought this little picture of one guy who's taking care of his tree and making one that's really nice and happy, and the other guy's got a dead tree here because one person is putting in the work, and that is what is required. Okay, so here's what I'm talking about. Exam number 2 is coming. We have a due date this week, Thursday, October the 11th. By 11:55 p.m. on Thursday, October the 11th, all 3 parts of Chapter 5 and all 3 parts of Chapter 6 must be completed. Now, why do you have 3 parts here? Because if I put all the problems into just one part, then you have more to repeat every single time you begin. And so by putting it into 3 separate parts, it allows you to get your top score and then move on to focus on the next part. And of course then to continue that into Chapter 6. But I'm a little concerned because, let's see, let me come over here to Connect, and I monitor your progress in Connect. And remember that last time I was here, we were talking about exam number 1 and how our class, our online class, had an average of 69%. That's a D. It wasn't even at a point where we could round it to a C because it's 69.05%. And we said, why did that happen? And this yellow bar correlates, I would say, to this and this yellow bar. In other words, when we're not, or at least there's not a lot of us, doing the homework and doing it well, that directly results in a low exam score. So here we see even a worse case scenario. We've got Chapter 5. Well, I see one green bar here, and when I hover over it, it says this is Chapter 5, Part 1. And this bar indicates 100%. Unfortunately, only 2 of our 12 enrolled students have even attempted this. Now, the good news is those 2 folks are out there. They've got 100%. That is fantastic. We come over here to this first red bar, Chapter 5, Part 2. Again, 2 students. Now, the average is of 55%. What this could mean, if you're one of these 2 students, is that one person made 100% and the other person made, nearly a 0, right? So the average here, we don't know how these 2 students did. One may do very well. But again, the problem is that you should be at this point in our timetable, in your schedule, wrapping up Chapter 5, right? This score should be much higher on Part 2. Especially, I've gotten no questions. Nobody is emailing me saying, I do not understand, right? So I'm a little concerned. Now here we are in Chapter 5, Part 3, and we see that one person has done what I call as a reconnaissance mission. You've gone out and you've looked at the problems, and I don't care, that's fine, and especially maybe you print them off and you think about it and solve it, and then of course you can come back in and it doesn't matter what the numbers are. Once you know the process, the numbers are just kind of a plug and chug process, right? You just put them into your calculator, use the formula that you have already identified, right? So it's okay. I wish that Chapter 5, Part 3 had, goodness, at least 2 students, but I think closer to 10 to 12 students would be a better place for that bar to be. My concern is that nobody has done a reconnaissance mission on Chapter 6. Chapter 6, Part 1, Part 2, Part 3 are completely unattempted at this point. So let me go back. There is a danger that the pattern that we saw for exam number 1 will be repeated. You're at a crossroads as we begin week 7, and I hope that you will put in the work that's needed to really develop that. Now, you still have some time at this point, right? So I want you to get out there. I want you to be working and working and working on this homework because exam number 2 is is coming. So let's talk a little bit while we're on the subject of chapter 2 of exam number 2. Let's go ahead and talk about that. I am in pause. I'm in the content link. Look at all this work. I've collapsed the course orientation and the work that you've done prior to this, right? So water under the bridge, but a lot of blood, sweat, and tears under the bridge as you've worked really hard. And I know you have. So you've got some tutorials here for your calculator to help you with that. Here we are in chapter 6, and I'm going to come back to this guy here, YouTube videos for Learning Project 3. But for now, let's continue down to where it says exam number 2 instructions. And I realized I've got this out of order, and I will fix that. I apologize. Now, you know when you click this exam number 2 instruction link, be very patient. It takes it time to load. It will eventually come up in this little window. And when it does, my recommendation to you, as always, is that you save this document to your desktop, someplace, your flash drive, whatever, where you can get to it quickly. And you do that by clicking on this floppy disk over here on the side. Now, you can also, use this middle area here to expand it. I've already got it open in a big screen, so let's go to that. Okay, you know that you're to work independently, right? Window of availability, the test begins Friday, October 7th. You can begin as early as 5 a.m. The window slams shut. The door closes Sunday, October 14th at 11:55 p.m. Don't call it that close. Everyone's clock is slightly different, and I would highly recommend to you that your goal for completing the exam is Friday. Failing that, you got to work, you're tired, whatever, Saturday, you set aside some time. Find out the hours of operation for the college library, for a lab that you know to be open in maybe the academic building or down on the Union campus, wherever you are. Right? As a last resort, Sunday morning. Maybe it's the only time you can have some time free from the kids and family to take over and that kind of thing. Well, okay. But the later you get on Sunday night, the more worried I am for you. Because when you have a crisis, there's good old Murphy's Law. And Murphy's Law says that anything that can happen will happen, and at the worst possible time. When is your computer going to fail? Sunday night, when the libraries are closed, you don't have access to get online. And what happens if you can't take that test? Well, I hope you're not saying you email me and ask for an extension, because you know that that's not going to happen. Instead, you're going to be using this up as a drop grade. As a class, the scores were not good for exam number 1, so I bet you don't have a drop grade to use, which means you must plan to succeed with this test, right? You're at that crossroads. Start making that plan to turn to success, and that means scheduling time. You know, we've talked about this. I beat this drum very much so in the last discussion of the exam. One attempt. No retakes. Internet connection drops, computer crashes, earthquake, thunderstorms outside, lightning strike. One attempt. Plan for success. If that means that you need to come to the campus to take the exam, then you should plan to do that. Okay. Again, the exams were not good the last time, so if that was the grade you're hoping to use as your drop grade, you really need to make sure that you have the time and have scheduled access to a reliable internet and computer to complete the test. Once you begin, you don't have forever. You'll have 100 minutes, which is why practicing the homework is important. When you see that particular word problem that is drawn directly from the homework, right? You practice the homework. I randomly pull problems from the homework that become the test questions. You, in your mind, want to be saying, oh yes, This is a binomial. And when I have a binomial, I need to know the total number of trials, n. I need to know the number of successes that I'm interested in. And what letter is that? X. X equals number of successes. And I need to know pi. And if you're saying that pi is 3.14, nope, 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 right? Pi is just the Greek letter P, meaning what is the probability of success. Be really careful with that, and hopefully some of the YouTube videos I directed you towards will be helpful. Remember that you cannot stop the clock once you begin. Don't begin and then say, oh, I should have organized my notes. Where is my calculator? What have I done with my book? These are not the questions of a successful student. Instead, the successful student says, I've got my books, maybe I even have little post-it notes to mark the beginning of chapter 5 or the formulas page of chapter 6 or chapter 5. You know, you've got things highlighted or, you know, like I said, tabs to very quickly go to those things. Maybe you've printed some of your homework problems. You know that the numbers are going to randomly change as part of the test, but if you have that process and you understand how to identify the type of problem, write your formula, list your givens, be methodical in your calculations, either in Excel or in your calculator, then you're going to be able to complete those questions within the 100 minutes. So, single sitting, you know, let me go back to that. You're going to complete the exam in a single sitting, and don't forget to press the submit button when you're done. Okay, how many questions? 10. 10 questions, 5 points each. There's a little bit of a trade-off here. We could go with a lower number of questions, but then when you miss them, the point value would be significantly higher, right? So it's 10 questions, 5 points each. But again, you've seen these questions before from the homework. So this is just a matter of assessing what you've learned from the homework. The more practice that you invest, the more time in the homework, productive time, if you get stuck, ask a question, the better you're going to be. So how do you begin? You go to Connect for exam number 2. You're going to click the name of the exam, which is exam number 2, and it's going to ask you for a password. The password is success, because I want you to make that decision and to have that success. You're going to define your success for this exam, right? So you're going to type success, then you're going to, I think, click OK, and you're going to begin the exam. Now, you know, of course, but just as a reminder, once you finish the exam, you will not immediately know your grade. I do put a delay on that. That's, again, a little bit of a deterrent for sharing your work with others and to take a little bit of the pressure off, to allow you a little bit of a cool down time if that's necessary. But the best, you know, what's the best medicine that I can advise you, the best vitamin for success? Practice, 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 practice. Okay? So those are some of the big details I want to talk about, the due dates in Connect and the exam 2 that is coming. But I also thought we would go ahead and talk about your learning projects. So the grades are posted for learning project number 2, and I know that learning project number 3 may not be on your mind right now, but I am going to go to the content page, because when you look at the instructions for Learning Project 3, you'll be told to come here. I'm in Content, Chapter 6. Find this link. I said I was going to come back to this. YouTube videos, Learning Project 3. And very similar, not identical, read the assignment instructions, but I'm not even concerned about doing the assignment right now. What I'm interested in is getting help with Chapter 6. How am I going to get help from Chapter 6? Because I've directed you towards a number of videos that are directly applicable to Chapter 6. You're going to have to watch these videos anyway, so why not go ahead and start watching them now? You know, these are short videos that might be very instructive in solving the problems that you have to solve. Here's one on the binomial. You know, since it's not displaying here, copy this link and paste it into a new browser window. Look at this one. You know what? If you've got one of these TI-83, TI-84 calculators, this video will first of all show you how to solve a binomial, but it'll also show you how to use your calculator, right, to do that if you have that calculator. Well, what if you don't have that calculator? Well, then maybe you want to go through this example where the instructor just uses, I would say digital paper and pencil, but paper and pencil to solve that problem. Okay, here's another one, and again, they're going to show you this binom PDF is the function on your TI-83, TI-84 calculator, right? What about Poissons? Well, this video is going to show you how to solve a Poisson. How about hypergeometric? Give you a little hint. One of these is your instructor solving a hypergeometric problem. And in each case, this is, you got to translate this knowledge from the page to the stage. No, I'm not doing your homework for you, but the process is the same. You identify the kind of problem. Once you know the kind of problem, let's take a hypergeometric problem. Well, you need to know your population. Is that big N or little n? Big N. If I talk about 1,000 employees that work at my company, the population is 1,000. Well, how many of those employees are going to vote the way that I want them to vote? That's the number of successes in the population. In our textbook, that variable is capital S. Okay, now I got two more variables that I need. I'm going to draw a sample. How many are in that sample? Well, that's lowercase n. Within that sample, how many successes, how many people are going to vote the way that I want them to vote? That is X, right? So we have success within the sample, we have the population, and the number of successes in that entire population. Right? I'm going to explain that to you and make it pretty straightforward and easy if you'll just go through these videos and watch them. Okay, so Poisson, you'll notice there's only one on that. Poissons, you almost kind of pray for Poisson. They tend to be the most, they only have two variables that you end up needing to know. So you can look through, watch the videos on that, right? Okay, so watching these videos might be very helpful in Chapter 6. And since we know you haven't started Chapter 6, I highly suggest that you investigate those. Again, exam number 2 is coming. So, be on the lookout, be working on that homework, because every time, let me go back over here, every time you complete and raise your score and get that 85% or above on that homework, you are directly preparing for the test. So, get out there, get working. I know you can do it. And if you run into a question where you cannot figure something out, you cannot get started, then copy paste that into an email, send it to me in pause, and I will be glad to help you get started on that problem. As I reviewed your Learning Project 2, that spreadsheet hopefully is a great template for you if you did that extra credit to begin work on Chapter 6. So get out there and get started. You still got time to succeed. I'm ringing the warning bell early for you, but I'm poking you with the sharp stick to say it's time to get busy, time to get working. So you can do it. Hang tough. You're halfway in. You don't want to turn back now. You've invested a lot. So let's be on the upswing from this point forward. You can do it.